Ambassador Mike Huckabee, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Of course, I want to start out with something unfortunately not so positive. There were these new comments reported by the Wall Street Journal about this tension that is happening between Trump and Netanyahu and increasing frustration. I'm wondering if you have any insight to this. Is this accurate? And do you feel that Trump is getting tired of the military action and looking for something different from the country?
I think people need to understand that the relationship between the United States and Israel is as strong as it ever has been. And the relationship between the President and the Prime Minister is as strong as it's ever been. So let's take off the table that there's this rift or there's a division. It doesn't mean that friends don't at times maybe disagree. I've been married 51 years. My wife and I disagree every now and then. That's normal. It's normal. But you don't break up and go get a divorce because you had a disagreement over something. You work through it. I'm not even sure that there's a big disagreement over anything. I'm just telling you that this idea that there's a break is simply untrue. And I'll tell you one of the reasons I can kind of validate that. Prime Minister is supposed to come to New York, speak at the United Nations later this month, and the President has already said, come down to Washington when you're over, let's visit. You don't do that if you're mad at somebody. You don't go on a date if you don't want to see somebody. So President Trump has spent more time with Prime Minister Netanyahu than any world leader by far on the planet. I think that says everything a person needs to know.
So moving on to the UN General Assembly that you just mentioned, obviously on September 22nd, which is just coming up, there's going to be this whole debate and probably recognition by a number of Western countries of Palestinian statehood. What will be the U.S. position that day? Will the U.S. actively lobby against such a move, or will they kind of remain neutral and let it pass?
Oh, we're not neutral, not at all. In fact, we've been very vocal for 2 months saying this is a ridiculous idea, it's hurtful, it's detrimental. I think Secretary Rubio has used about every possible combination of words he can, and he's made many calls to our allies and said to them, what are you doing? We are vehemently opposed to this. It is a violation of Oslo. It is an outrageous action that is empowering Hamas and caused negotiations to cease. It ended any talk between Ramallah and Jerusalem. I was involved in those, trying to get this financial impasse resolved. It put that stone cold. And then it's also giving really a sense of, I think, encouragement to Israel to consider declaring sovereignty over parts of Judea and Samaria, because why not? The whole thing is a stunt. It's not going to happen. You can't just unilaterally declare Palestine to be a state. So what they think they're doing, I have no idea. But I know what they are doing, and it's absolutely repugnant to the U.S.
And do you believe then that the U.S. would support some form of sovereignty over at least areas in Judea and Samaria, given the situation that's going to happen in a few days?
There's not been any discussion that I'm aware of, certainly hadn't been communicated to me, and I take my marching orders from Washington and from the President. But the fact that nobody has said anything, I think the general view of this administration, both in the first term and in this one, is that we have great respect that Israel is a sovereign country, and it is our partner. And we respect that Israel will make decisions that are best for Israel, and we will respect those. And I have no reason to doubt that that's not the case here.
And certainly, as an evangelical Christian, I know that you've come many, many times, 100 times more, to Israel, and certainly visited Judea and Samaria and been very supportive of sovereignty over that area. Is that generally the stance, though, of the administration with such an evangelical backing, that Judea and Samaria belongs to the Jewish people?
I don't think it's an official policy that has been stated, put into writing. I know we have stated, and this has been something that carries over from the first President Trump term, and that is that it is not illegal for Jews to live in Judea and Samaria. That was something that for some people were, oh my gosh, it's illegal. I'm thinking, why would it be illegal? Brits can move into Judea and Samaria. Nobody says anything. French people can move there. Why can't Jews move there and live there? I mean, it really is kind of absurd if you look at it in that way, that anybody can live there except Jews. That makes no sense. So in the first Trump term, and carried over now, is we recognize it is not a violation of international law, which was sort of maybe the narrative that was put out there.
Yeah. Now, with regards to a two-state solution or even any kind of Palestinian state, while the Trump administration in the U.S. is not going to be supporting the move to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state, in the first term, Trump did have an idea of having a Palestinian and an Israeli state side by side. Is that still the vision, or has that gone away, especially since October 7th?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from the president about that, and I think a couple of things are changed since then. October 7th is a big one. And the other one, the president made this proposal in the first term. The Palestinians said, we don't want any part of any discussion, and they walked away. But they walked away from everything. You know, everybody forgets that, first of all, there was no such thing as a Palestinian state. Yasser Arafat in 1964 created an aspiration for a Palestinian state with the PLO. And then there have been many iterations of proposals and ideas. There was, in fact, the creation of a Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. How did that work out? Because in 2005, the Israelis moved all of the Jews, 10,000 of them, out of Gaza forcibly by the IDF. So Israel's own military moved their own people out and said, it's all yours. You got a Palestinian state. 2 years later, they elect Hamas. And then, tragically, October the 7th, the worst nightmare since the Holocaust happened to Jewish people in Israel, and in fact not all of them were Jewish, there were people from all over the world. They indiscriminately murdered, massacred, and mutilated babies, pregnant women. They raped, they destroyed, they set old people on fire, they beheaded babies and put them in ovens. It's the most unspeakable atrocities that was carried out by Hamas. And for those who try to deny it, they can't, because Hamas videotaped the act of doing these hideous things because they were actually proud of it. And you can't overlook that. You can't stop and say, well, they didn't really mean it. Not only did they mean it, they have continued to say they would do it again and again and again.
And yet most of the world, as we said, is really siding with Hamas. We're seeing all of these massive rallies in the streets and countries getting ready, our allies, to go and to recognize a Palestinian state and give in, as you said, to terrorism. So what makes the U.S. different? Why are the U.S. and Israel such staunch allies even now?
Israel's enemies are our enemies. We understand that. The philosophical underpinning that did October the 7th is what attacked us on 9/11. We're never going to forget that. We're not going to forget that for 46 years, Iran and its proxies, which are Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah, has said that Israel is the little Satan. We're going to annihilate them, and then we're coming after the great Satan, which is, in their mind, the U.S. So Israel has always been the appetizer. The U.S. is the entree. And those of us who have lived through these past 46 years understand that when people keep telling you for 46 consecutive years they're going to kill you, you might want to take them seriously.
Yeah, and we certainly recognize that on October 7th. Now, there was a report that showed a plan that was devised by Tony Blair as a plan for the day after in Gaza, a plan where Hamas would no longer be governing. There would be an international interim transitional government, and ultimately the Palestinian Authority would take over. It was reported that the U.S. has support for such a plan. Can you tell me any more details about that, and do you feel that that's the vision for the PA to take over in Gaza?
I would be surprised if the PA would be picked to take over Gaza, because unless they make some serious changes in the way they're governing now, I'm not sure the U.S. could be supportive of that. I'll give you a couple of examples. If they continue the pay for slay, now they say they've changed it, but the fact is they really haven't. It just is now kind of maybe mechanized through a different system of payments. But even this summer, President Abbas has said if there's only 1 penny left in the treasury, that last penny will go to the martyrs, which means the terrorists, the people who killed Jews and got paid for it. You can't have a responsible government that pays people to murder the innocent lives of Jewish people. I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. And you cannot continue to have textbooks that teach little bitty children, 5, 6, 7 years old, that their greatest aspiration in life is to go and murder Jews and commit acts of terror. Those are things that the United States has repeatedly said to the PA, you got to stop this. It violates our law. We have a law called the Taylor Force Act. Right. We can't even work with or give money if they're going to continue these practices.
So then what is the vision for governing Gaza after? Does the U.S. have an idea of who should take over?
I don't think anything's been put down from 2 tablets of stone marked Mount Sinai quite yet. So it could be any number of things. I have heard one suggested being similar to what you've mentioned, and that is there would be a consortium of states, mostly Arab states. There would be a sort of an interim government and eventually move toward autonomy. But right now I don't think anyone knows, and it's probably premature to get too into how it's going to look, because until all the hostages come out and Hamas surrenders, There is no day after.
Speaking of the hostages, Dermer left to go meet with Wickoff in London, of course, and to try to move another hostage deal, last-ditch attempt to move that forward.
Yeah.
Why have we not been able to get to a hostage deal thus far? Is there someone who's actually at fault here? And do you have any faith that we could end this war with a deal?
Could have ended October the 8th, 2023. Hamas, if they just decide that they're going to give all the hostages back, they're going to quit torturing them, brutalizing them, murdering them, and they recognize they don't have any future there, it ends. It ends then. It ends today if they were to do that. President Trump has said this repeatedly. Hamas can't stay, they can't govern, and they got to let all the hostages go. It's simple as that.
Do you think it's going to happen?
Not as long as Hamas is as stubborn as they are. It's really unfortunate that a lot of people are thinking that this is going on because Israel wants it to go on. Israel wants it to end. Prime Minister, his government wants it to end. So those who say, oh, he wants this to prolong. When I go into a meeting at the Prime Minister's office and his top team are sitting there, 8 or 10 people, at least half of them have sons or daughters fighting in Gaza right now. Ron Dermer has 2 sons there right now. So to say that the people who are having to make these very difficult decisions want their children to remain in Gaza fighting and putting themselves in harm's way, it's utter nonsense. Nobody would like to see it end more than the people whose children or whose husbands or wives or uncles or aunts are in Gaza fighting.
Can you give me also an update on the humanitarian situation, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? How is it doing at this point, and do you feel that this is the right method still to be able to help the people of Gaza?
I really do. When President Trump gave us the charge of getting food to people that were hungry and doing humanitarian efforts, but doing it in a way where Hamas couldn't steal the food. Hamas is stealing 99% of the World Food Program food. That's their numbers. That's not our numbers. That's what they say. The UN is about 93% of their food is looted or stolen. When you have that level of failure, it's not that food isn't going into Gaza. Lots of food is going into Gaza. There's enough food there to take care of everybody many times over. But Hamas steals it, they warehouse it, then they sell it on the black market to the people who are supposed to be getting it for free. Under GHF, the food is actually going to the people who need it. And they come up and here's what they tell us. Wow, this is the first time I didn't have to pay for the food. That's how it's supposed to work. So it's our hope that this process that GHF has created can be expanded and that we can put more feeding sites. And that's what is happening. It's what's going to happen. This tragedy is, you know who hates GHF? Hamas hates it. Part of what they have demanded in negotiations is you got to get rid of GHF. Well, why would they want that? Because it's hurting their ability to control all this food that they steal. And when they can't steal it, they can't sell it. When they can't sell it, they don't have the money. And last year they made $500 million selling humanitarian food and buying bullets and bombs with it.
And I know we're going to run out of time, so I'm just going to ask you 2 short ending questions, and then I know that we're going to have to stop. So I do want to flip quickly to Qatar. After Israel's attempted attack in Doha, the president came out and met immediately with the emir. Rubio traveled over there trying to allay any tension with the country. We know that Qatar is funding terrorism. We know that Qatar is housing terrorists. Why is the U.S. not taking a stance against Qatar?
I think U.S. puts pressure on Qatar in ways that may not be that public, but we have our largest military base in the Middle East is there. They've done good things with us. They've been a good partner in some things, and other things we could see some improvement. Sponsoring the Muslim Brotherhood, paying for Al Jazeera, which is a propaganda machine for Hamas and for terrorism, those are not good things. So it's a mixed relationship that we have. One thing I think President Trump is the best at is recognizing you do what you can as well as you can with people who will work with you, and then you work toward a better relationship.
Lord, now I want to just end with a question about the evangelical Christian community and certainly your longtime support for the State of Israel. The evangelical community in the younger generation, we're starting to see is distancing both from the Bible but also from Israel. What are your concerns there, and is there a way to fix that so that in future generations we'll have more leaders like you?
Well, I don't think it's widespread to the point of panic or alarm, but it is happening, and I'm very concerned about it. Some of it is because billions of dollars of Middle East money has poured into colleges and universities to indoctrinate young Christians that Israel's not special, there's nothing all that unique about it. I blame part of it on that and part of it on weak pastors who from their own pulpits are not explaining the biblical basis of support for the Jewish people. That troubles me greatly, and it's kind of incumbent upon the rest of us to help explain why this relationship is what it is and why it has to remain solid and even grow and get in more depth. But overall, I think there's still a very strong support, not just among the evangelicals, but overall from Americans. And we need to keep it, but we've got to do a better job of explaining why the relationship is important, how America benefits from it, because there are people in America who foolishly believe, well, we're doing all this stuff for Israel, they're doing nothing for us. And that's not true. We're getting as much as we are giving. It is a two-way partnership that America benefits from, not just Israel.
Wonderful. Well, Master Huckabee, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you. Pleasure to visit with you.
Thanks.